Hello, everybody. The football experience is back. We wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year during the time that just went. Hopefully, everyone spent it well with their families and their loved ones, and hopefully it was a lovely time for them. Caleb, how was your Christmas and New Year's?
Well, it was good. Busy as always, and trying to fit in football resuming, and then try to switch your brain to club football as well. It definitely took a while. The Boxing Day fixtures, I remember not really being completely into it. It's like okay, there wasn't really any standout fixtures really to whet the appetite. But then around the New Year's fixtures, the second round. And I think the French league coming back as well, La Liga coming back. That's when it's like, oh, all right, so we're doing this. We're back into club now. Let's go. So yeah, that's kind of the sense of it. We've been away. I didn't think it was uh, a good time to do a pod last week because there was no hardcore opinions that have changed since the end of when clubs sort of stopped for the World Cup. So yeah, now I think we're ready to get back into the club stuff.
Yeah, well,
And the transfer window's open,
yeah,
which is
well,
crazy.
we did think that we'd let things marinate, let things stew. Give it a couple of. We basically had two match days over Boxing Day and New Year's. Let the narrative sort of come along and see how different clubs come back after the World Cup. And there's one club that has
Well, might as well start at the top, I guess.
yeah, there's one club that has come back pretty much as if there wasn't any World Cup. Maybe even better than before the World Cup. In all honesty, and you know what though, like speaking of the World Cup, like comparing it to club football, I told Matthias this. I was like, "Man, it's actually nice watching club football again because things just seem a lot more organized, a lot more fluid, but the passion levels are different. Like club football is very professional, whereas World Cup and Euros they're very passionate. So there's a difference in that, like in the fluidity of the football, or maybe it's just that I'm watching, Arsenal who probably on form and the way they're playing, they're probably one of the best.
Hold on, Arsenal, because it's so interesting that you say the first thing that you said, because the bigger picture point was my second dot point on my notes was how much better the football is compared to the World Cup. And I think I'm like one of those people who just believes like the more things change, the more they stay the same. So when we look at club v international football, I choose to look at like the history of international football and go, you know what? There's a reason why the World Cup has and for me still is the pinnacle, the greatest stage of the sport. There's a reason why that's been the case this whole time. And I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head in terms of the passion and sort of the more. It's hard to say strongly felt allegiance because if you ask me whether I was more a Liverpool fan or whether I was more Australian, I'd say I'm more of a Liverpool supporter. That's probably the tribe that I belong to more than being an Australian. But maybe if I was in a more passionate footballing country, I would feel differently about that, particularly like South America or whatnot. But yeah, the emotion is different. I think the imperfections are somewhat charming. I think being the fact that it's the world stage, I think the fact that it is the greatest stage, and you've literally got the most eyeballs that you'll ever probably have on you in your whole career, maybe barring Champions League finals. But obviously, if you make it deep in the World Cup, even then, you've still got more eyes on you than any sort of stage of the Champions League. So yeah, I think all in all, it's like it's pros and cons, and a lot of people are like, well, we can clearly now see that club football is the greatest standard, and yeah, that might be true, like greatest technical standard of football, but it's for me, it's still not the pinnacle. Like I'll always weight an international trophy, especially a World Cup. The World Cup will always be the highest weighted trophy that a player or a manager can receive. So yeah, you might the Champions League might be, to your point, more structured, more organised, quicker. The incisive attacking movements were so much so much cleaner on the eyes compared to the World Cup. And obviously, the World Cup, you have to make do with what squads you have, and you can't control where your weaknesses will be in a team because, like, pretty much every team in the World Cup we're talking about, they were being flawed. And then, and now I can let you go into your Arsenal point because it's a perfect contrast because we're seeing maybe the best team in Europe. We haven't been able to see Napoli come back, but Arsenal, have just kicked off where they left off. And compared to some of that international stuff, it's so much sharper on your eyes, to your point.
Well, just before I do get into them, do you think that with international football, do you think it's a little bit more raw and a little bit more individualistic rather than, because you mentioned the sharpness.
Yeah.
So because there isn't...
Point.
Because there isn't that chemistry that necessarily exists because you're not playing on a daily basis, and teams train like twice a day, albeit like one session might be a gym session and then another session might be an actual shadow session or whatnot. But like these guys are together.
Yeah, just quickly though, the counter to that, of course, is in a lot of cases you've been playing your junior national team football all together, and obviously you're all from the same country, so communication and camaraderie is often stronger in national teams on that side of it. So yeah, you've got the chemistry because of working day to day on clubs, but you've also got chemistry of being with your fellow countrymen and obviously playing junior football together and no communication issues. I still
counter that argument a little bit because I reckon if you go through the teams, there's probably only like 3 or 4 players that actually played together, like coming through those junior setups of each national team. Like for instance, did like Saka and Foden would have played together for England, but then like
no, I take your point, but what I'm trying to say more is like the structures that you're around. If you're in a solid sort of federation who has their shit together, basically. All these players, no matter if they actually played together in juniors or not, they've all played like the same style leading them up to the first team. So they're all sort of on the same page in that way as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I feel like there's counters to that argument, but
I just wanted to offer the counter to the chemistry for club versus nation as well.
But regardless, like we're in agreement that I guess the club football is just, like you mentioned it, the attacking play is a lot sharper and a lot more incisive, or decisive or incisive?
Incisive. And decisive.
And decisive. Both. But like, I didn't watch too much of other teams play over this period, but I watched both of Arsenal's games, and it was just like, wow, like this, like the contrast between watching this and then watching, Argentina or France and whatnot, and watching and comparing the build-up play of either of, and like between the two teams of international and for instance Arsenal, it's night and day. Like it just seems quicker because obviously, the players have been together, they know what they need to do, so it's more instinctive in that sense.
And Arsenal are a very young team as well as squad, and I think they all share. That's the added advantage of being at a club because you can have that sort of vision, and that you can say it's our objective to get the age profile of the squad to this age, so that we can play in the way that we're playing. Whereas, obviously, national team football, you don't have that luxury. So, but yeah, I think just to put a bow on it, that individual point I think is a really good one on what makes international football so charming, I guess, because you can see those individual performances like we just saw with Messi, who was able to drag a team. I don't think you can do that in club football. I mean, like, I know it's a small case sample, but a perfect example is Kylian Mbappe's last game was playing in if you take the Strasbourg game out, sorry. But the game before, he played in the World Cup final and he dominated for those last 40 minutes. And now he goes on and plays second in the table, Lens, and they've been able to sort of be structured and game plan against him, and he couldn't have anywhere near the same kind of impact. So, yeah, I think that individual, like the fact that we can see individual performers play like they do on the international stage is really charming, and that's where you get your legends of the game from, really, with stuff like that.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. But wrap a bow on that. Let's move on to my darling club.
Boys.
My boys.
Are you going to give us a soundbite? Is it time?
Oh, look, you know what? This next month and a half, considering the fixtures that both us and City have, I think we have a very similar fixture schedule. Because I think out of our next 7 fixtures, I think we have Newcastle twice, if I'm not mistaken. But we have Newcastle now coming up tomorrow. We have Tottenham, we have Man United, we have City, and then I think we have Everton at Everton, which can be tricky. It could be like a banana peel sort of game. I think there's one more in there could be a little bit tricky. I think we have Aston Villa, maybe. So it's Aston Villa under Emery. I think so. But these next 7 fixtures, and then City, I think they have Chelsea now coming up either tomorrow or Wednesday or on the weekend. I think they have United as well on the 22nd. So they have a couple of tricky fixtures, like where they're playing the top 6 clubs, and then we're also playing the top 6 clubs as well. So I want to see how we get through this, because 2 losses and then like if City don't lose, then it's 1 point in it. And we saw
you're discrediting a team as well.
No, not really.
If they can contribute to one of those losses in the next game as well,
but
and all of a sudden,
Newcastle.
Yeah, I still think.
Yeah, I know. Like, we have to see how tomorrow goes.
I actually think this game coming up, and we'll preview it. But this is the game between the 2 best teams in the country for me. I got City 3rd at the moment.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, like, I think Paul Merson said, like, Arsenal's have to play City twice. So if City win both those games, and if Arsenal win every single game, and City win every single game, including those 2 against us, there's only 1 point in it then. So it's still not done and dusted. Like, it's obviously not done and dusted because there's like 20 games left.
More, man.
And also
24, yeah.
And also, if you consider, for instance, the battles, but like City are battle tested, and the battles that they had with Liverpool, I think, like, going back to 1920, was it when City won, like, was it 14 or 15 in a row? And it was like I remember the moment where I'm like, where I knew City are winning the league. It was that company goal against Leicester.
Everyone knew once he put that in. But
once, because the game was just so difficult. It was like locked. It was like, and it was. I think it was like one of their only major banana peels, sort of along the way. And then I hate this section. But once that went in, you're like, shit, they're winning the league, and they have it in them. Like, they've done it over the past 3-4 seasons with Liverpool, where you just gone neck and neck, and City have just gone on amazing runs. So it's like, you can't, like, 7 points. It's like, you can't say that it's like, it's definitely not over. We're definitely in a very good position. But now the talk could be, we're sort of putting ourselves in a position where if we don't win, it's like if we don't win the league, then we bottled it. I don't think that's necessarily the case just yet. I think you can say that, for instance, I think it was. It actually came up on my Facebook just before we went on the pod. Bayer Leverkusen, I think in 2002, like they could have won the treble, and I think they were 5 points clear with like 5 games left, and they ended up finishing second to Dortmund. If it's if it's a scenario like that, then yeah, I think that's a bottle job. But being 7 points clear and at the start of January with 20 games left, 22 games left, because I think only 16 have been played.
not a normal start of January as well.
Yeah.
I think we're probably a few games behind where we'd normally be. We're not. Well, to your point, we're not to the halfway point.
Yeah, like
Um,
we're facing Newcastle for the first time. We're facing City for the
yeah,
first time in February.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we're not even at the halfway point until those games are done. I think we still have to face Everton twice as well because the first game
Oh,
got delayed.
come on, come
I
on! If you're winning a title, you've got to be picking up at least 4 points, if not six, from them.
Yeah, I know, but it's still like Goodison can still be a tricky ground to go to.
Yeah. That's why
Um,
I'll say four is okay.
yeah,
If you get a draw from Goodison, it's not the end of the world. But I was trying to bait you into it, but you gave a very smart answer. Especially because you've done your prep and you looked at the fixture list ahead. And I think the key point is that we're not too halfway yet. So yeah, to your point, it's not a bottle job if they don't win it from here. I think if we had 10 more games. And you're still 7 points cleared, then we can start looking, hey, if you don't win it from here, it's not great. But yeah, at this point, not even halfway, still have to play the closest two challenges in the league. But as well, there is no reason that I've seen that you guys will not or could not win the league. The only I guess question mark we can maybe point to is the age profile, as I said before, and the experience profile of the squad. But hey, man, they're missing Gabriel Jesus, and they still look like this. But granted, we have a test now. We have the test of those fixtures, and if they were going to slip up, you'd think now is the perfect time where they could lose. To your point, two of the next 6 or 7 games or whatever. And then we get to see the confidence maybe tested a little bit, the experience of that squad and that manager tested a little bit. Um, if it's Newcastle breathing down their neck, then they'll feel okay. But I find it hard to believe that City won't be in the pack as well. So City, I think, will look. I could see you guys comfortably winning the league. I could see it. You're playing that well.
well,
I would find it a little hard to believe that City. See, this is a vintage City for me. I know they've got Haaland, which it's crazy to say it's not vintage City, but that defense and the way they're playing, and we'll touch on City a bit later, but I'm not filled with huge confidence about City at the moment, even though they should be better than what they were last season because they've added Erling Haaland and he's incredible, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. You guys, for me, aesthetically, it might be the new thing, but you look so much better than City. Just look like a better team, a more confident team, a sharper team. And yeah, you've taken this Jesus injury in your stride, and I think Nketiah is starting to make me eat my words a little bit. But I mean, that's what £100,000 backup striker should be doing. You know, he should be coming into the team and playing pretty well against these teams that they've played so far. And you know, it's good. He has so many great attacking players around him. Erdogan seems to have gone to the next level. And Saka, we put in our team at the tournament for the World Cup, and Martinelli, we all know how good he is. So when you get a chance, it's kind of, for me, my eyes straight away when I watch Eddie Nketiah lead the line for Arsenal, I think is that not Choupo-Moting for Bayern Munich? He's having this impact, but for me, he's got these great nippy, speedy technicians around him. I mean, it's hard to fail when you're there. But to his credit, he's put in the work and he's become a good backup option, and one that I think Arsenal shouldn't be looking for in the transfer window to necessarily get a like for like striker in. And I guess that might lead into the next point. But for me, I wouldn't be looking to get another striker in. I'd just wait for Jesus to come back, and if the plan was to go ahead with Mudryk, I'd get Mudryk straight away because I think he's an excellent player. And I think even though he doesn't play that position, I think he just gives you another potentially world-class option in the forward areas, and like if you wanted to play a fluid front four, you could do that as well. So yeah, I think that would be an exciting one for you guys, and just add a little bit more depth and a little bit more quality, and probably I've been touting this one, but Sangare from PSV as a backup for Thomas Partey. But I don't know what his price is like at the moment, but again, that it was brought up on one of the talk shows again. If Thomas Partey goes down, you guys, just the cover there is, I think, the worst out of anywhere, really. Maybe centre back as well, but they're probably the two positions.
I think I'd heard a stat that I think. Oh, I think it was either this season or this calendar year. Arsenal have won 90% of the games that Thomas Partey has started.
Wow.
So, and also, I think that's sort of backed up because they showed a calendar year league table, and Arsenal were only 2 points behind City. I think City and Liverpool both had like 79, or Liverpool might have had 78, and then Arsenal had 77. Like, so for 2022, if it was just that as a season, like as a calendar year, like Arsenal finished third, only 2 points behind City. Like, it's pretty insane to think about it that way as well. But
A good team.
yeah, but in terms of signings, yeah, Mudryk, I've seen a little bit of him. Watched a couple of like highlight videos. Like, he seems very good. Very skillful, very nimble, very tricky. Yes, he's not that number 9. He's more of a like he'd pretty much come in for Martinelli or Saka, depending on what side you want to play him in. But if you could even potentially put Martinelli down the center and then Mudryk out on the left. And in terms of other signings, yeah, I think I know El Nenny's back, and he filled in pretty well towards the end of last season, especially like that Chelsea game, for instance, that we won at Stamford Bridge. He played very well in that game. But a backup for Partey is definitely needed. Lokonga is still finding his feet, and I think the Europa League is a perfect way for him to find his feet, or even like FA Cup, now that we're out of the Carabao Cup, but I think there's an FA Cup fixture coming up in a week, so that will give him a little bit more confidence and a little bit more game time. But I've mentioned that I'd love to see Lovro Maia come in to that midfield as well. I think that would be an excellent addition, very similar to Odegaard, but it would be interesting to see how he would fit in with like if he slots in instead of Xhaka, and then you have Odegaard and Maya in that midfield. There's like two number 8s or 10s. So that'd be an interesting combination.
That's kind of what they do with Xhaka at the moment. Anyway.
Yeah, I think Xhaka's slightly more defensive, and he makes more runs into the box, whereas Odegaard finds those gaps between the midfield and the attacking line. Whereas, yeah, Xhaka's making those forward runs, similar to like maybe a Lampard back in the day. So
we're talking about Granit Xhaka. I totally get you, but who'd have thought we'd be here at the start of the season? Granit Xhaka kind of playing like Frank Lampard.
Well, sort of like it's the throwback.
I'm not even completely against
you can't even dispute it, really.
Oh, he's playing well. It's crazy. It's crazy to think.
But like honestly, like if like I know like you said, we haven't seen Napoli come back yet, but out of all the teams in Europe, this is probably one of the best teams to watch in Europe. And I think someone also mentioned, I think out of all the top leagues, I think Arsenal and PSG are the only ones with 40 plus points. I think Arsenal are only behind PSG in terms of points tally, if I'm not mistaken. But I think that might have been. I'm not sure whether that was before or after this Brighton game that was said. So,
do you know how many points Arsenal are on off the top of your head?
43, I believe.
Yeah, so PSG is still 1 point clear.
Yeah, but they're the only two teams that are on 40 plus points.
Yeah, no, crazy. The pace that they're setting is really good. They've only lost to what is proving to be quite a good United team now, and we'll
we have them coming up. But if we're going to transition away from Arsenal, I just want to throw back. I think it was 2 months ago I mentioned that this season for Arsenal could be something similar to Leicester's, where everyone is sort of like dropping points behind them to each other, and then like we're just sort of running away with the league. And Leicester, I think they only lost to Arsenal twice. And I'm not sure if they had one other loss, but they lost to Arsenal. They lost
to Liverpool as well.
So I think they had
three losses all season.
So they had 3 losses all season, and they just sort of ran away with the league. Like every week, you're just like, oh, they're still at the top. Okay, they're still at the top. They're still at the top, and then like 5 games left. It's like shit. They're gonna win the league. Or we thought with the World Cup being thrown in, I think I said it might be something similar to. I can't remember what comparison I made it to, but like we just sort of like see them sort of just slowly fade away into like third-ish around there, and then City just sort of run away.
We could still see that over these fixtures as well, though.
Yeah, we could still see that.
I kind of love this because like I've been one of my mates as well as an Arsenal supporter, and he offered the soundbite. He said that he believed that they'll go on and win the league now, so he was very confident after the Brighton win. But yeah, he also said, well, we could do it like Leicester. And as soon as I see that, my instinct is to refute that. I get your point in it might be similar in the way it looks, but the fact that that was Leicester City meant that we could not believe it until maybe 3 games. Until they actually won it, I don't think anyone really believed Leicester were going to win the league. It took like us that long. Whereas this Arsenal team, I looked at it for the first 3 or 4 games, I thought, geez, this team is really good. If they play this way, if they can sustain it, they should be title challengers straight away. Honestly, the first night against Palace, the first 20 minutes, and I know they came under pressure later in that game, but the first 20 minutes where they just put the press on Palace and they just made themselves look really good and Palace look super ordinary, I was just like, okay, this team means business this season. And honestly, from that point, I've taken them seriously from that opening game. I'm like, you know what? If that's inside them and these players are young and can keep getting better, we got something really, really scary on our hands. And we do. And I think this offers a perfect transition to the team second in the league. And the team who, I think we've already said this on one of the pre-World Cup pods, but the team that should be absolutely kicking themselves. I know that they got in Erling Haaland. I know. And Erling Haaland is unbelievable. But if you look at Man City on paper straight away, and I'll ask you, where is the position where they need the upgrade the most? Because for me, it's obvious. It's glaring straight away. I can see it as soon as I see it.
Are you going to say defense? Because they still have good defenders.
No, well, not even unit. I want a specific position.
I'm gonna say right back because of Walker's injuries.
I can accept right back, and I think that's, and to your point as well. Like João Cancelo, it might not be coincidence that since he went to right back, he's been less effective as a defender. So you might be right, still seeing him as a left back. I still personally think here's the point. I think he would have been a good right back because of the player they had on their books, and then the player they not gave to you guys. You guys had to pay for him, but you guys now have Zinchenko, who honestly, like, I don't know where it's from, but he's one of the best left backs in the world. I know he's not a traditional left back.
He's barely played.
But the thing, he helped you change. I think he's better than Tierney when he plays in your guys' system. The problem is he needs to play in a specific system where a team can be on the front foot and a team can play with those left and right backs as central midfielders, as extra central midfielders, which Arsenal have done fantastically this season. And obviously Arteta already worked with him, so he knew what his strengths would be, and he's built a system, not around Zinchenko, but a system that he fits into perfectly. If you ask him to be a traditional left back, no chance. He's not in that breath. But when he can play the way he plays, and I know you guys have started using Tierney more, but I still prefer Zinchenko in that role personally. I know Tierney maybe gives you better defensive qualities.
You know what though?
But yeah,
just on the comparison between the two, and I should probably mention this in the Arsenal sort of our little roundup, but like I think it was in the what was the first game back? I can't even remember now. West Ham. I think Tierney started that game, and it's amazing that we have the option of playing 2 different styles depending on what left back we want. So with Tierney, we can play that overlapping left back style, and Martinelli can make more. He can cut in more. Whereas when Zinchenko plays, then we have a left back that's going to come into the midfield more and overload that midfield, and then Martinelli is free to play one-on-ones and to try to go out wide and try to go down the line. So it's good to have that the option of changing the style depending on what left back we use.
Yeah, and you didn't even throw in Tomiyasu, who has played left back a few times as well.
Yeah,
And he gives you that inverted option.
Yeah.
You go.
But
Yeah,
but you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe not in terms of play style. I reckon for mentality, Zinchenko has been an excellent signing because he's been injured this pretty much his whole time. This was his first game back since I don't know. I think it's like since United, which was back in like September. But you've seen him like in and around the dugout for the games, like in just like casual clothes. But he's been coming to games. He's been celebrating with the players. I think just before the World Cup, like he was sort of on the verge of coming back. He wasn't even like in his like he was there as a spectator, but he went like to the corner flag and celebrated with the players. I can't remember what game it was for, but like so he's bringing that sort of winning mentality, that sort of unity to the team as well. He's
a less heralded Kieran Trippier, really, in terms of that kind of signing. He's been playing really well on the pitch, but yeah, his ability off the pitch to galvanise everyone, unite everyone, has been fantastic. And that's, I guess, if you point to what we were talking about before, the lack of experience maybe being a downfall, well, you've got this guy who's been a Premier League champion over and over again for the team that is challenging you guys. You've got Jesus as well. I know you don't have him now, but you've got two players who know the ins and outs of City. Maybe not quite this City with Haaland, but still a lot of the build-up is still the same. A lot of Guardiola's tendencies are still the same. And then someone with this leadership and experience quality. I just think he's been one of the best signings of the season, Zinchenko, for me. And you could even argue him or Jesus, which one's been more important. I think the package deal itself just lifts it to a whole new level. And to think that City may have handed over the title to Arsenal is just, I can't wrap my head around it. I really can't. I can't believe, I know that Arteta used to work for you, and I know these players were probably happy to go and play for their former coach, but still for City to allow that to happen, I would have been trying everything if I'm going to sell them. And to the point, I never would have sold Zinchenko when I didn't have a backup ready and then I bought in it.
That's the bigger
January.
point.
I know they bought Sergi Gomez, but Zinchenko's been there and done that, and he's still of a good age to keep doing that. Why would you just let him go to a rival and not replace him? And not replace him with, I think there's good left backs out there on the market that City could have got. And they never went out and got them. And when I look at the team sheet and the way, and this is the other point, the way that City have to play, yeah, I think somewhat have to play, because I think Guardiola, the only reason I can see him why he uses this 3-4-3 sort of thing that he's using at the moment, particularly in possession. Out of possession, it might morph into more of a 4-4 something, although City are so keen to press the ball that you don't really get to see much of a shape behind the ball. It's more that instant transition, win the ball back, counter press quickly. But yeah, to have to play this 3 in possession with 3 centre backs, which I think the World Cup for me, and I know it's not a good barometer, international football compared to club football, but the World Cup for me showed that good teams play 4 at the back. They don't play the 5 at the back anymore. I think those days not are gone. They'll come back, obviously, but I think they're going to be on the wane. And City have somewhat gone to this style when I think it's maybe at its least effective. And the thing that I hate about them playing 3 at the back is, one, the geometry, less 45-degree angled passes, more looking down the barrel straight passes, and the players who are delivering those passes into midfield. Now you've got Stones, Akanji, and Ake, who for me are just, none of them are good ball players. Whereas you're Manchester City, and you've got good ball players everywhere else on the park, but you're sort of so worried about that, for me, that left-back position, that you're fitting in an extra centre-back who, for me, is not a world-class centre-back and not good on the ball. Your team just doesn't look as good as I think what it did in previous seasons when they had the 4-3-3, the full-backs really tight on the central. Somewhat what we've seen Arsenal play, in fact. I think Arsenal look a lot more like the City of old, and City are trying to do, I don't know, this evolution, but I don't think they look much better for it, and I think they should be kicking themselves for giving a rival, giving a rival a player that they desperately needed, but B, taking away a player that they desperately needed from their squad as well. I think this has been an underrated story, and I think City should be getting a lot more criticism for their dealings in the summer window. But obviously, you get Erling Haaland, so that's all that anyone focuses on.
I think it's still more telling of how bad of a deal it was, considering they after it went through, they were left scrambling to try and get Cucurella, and then they were blown out of the water because I think Brighton were asking for like 80 mil or something, and they're like, shit, we don't have that money because we sold Zinchenko for like 30 and we just spent 60 on Haaland, and like we're trying to like UEFA has their eyes on us because of financial fair play and all this shit, so like they can't go and spend 80 on Cucurella, and then it's like, well, what other left backs are there? We haven't done our research. I think that really caught them off guard, and I think it did come out that Guardiola wasn't too pleased that Zinchenko was sold,
and nor should he be, and especially without a replacement. And I think the left back position, when I was doing teams of the season before the break, it was stacked. Left back was absolutely stacked. I'm thinking Reynaldo from Atletico. Obviously, thinking my boy Tio. And amongst other names as well. I can't remember who made the first team, but obviously there's some players who maybe you can't prize away, Alphonso Davies or whatnot. But yeah, I just think City need to be ambitious there. I think it's the whole that if they could get a left back who allows them to play four at the back, and and then obviously João Cancelo is flexible between the both. And that's another point on the Zinchenko sale. Now you don't have backup to replace João Cancelo, who for me, whether he has been moody behaviourally or not, he's definitely been moody in what he's produced on the pitch. He's been very up and down this season. He's been very inconsistent, very poor defensively. But Guardiola just doesn't have the option to bring in a Zinchenko and just freshen that up and give Cancelo a little rest and take him away from the spotlight for a bit. So, and I think as well, Ruben Dias's form hasn't been great this season. That's a bit underreported as well, because and I guess this might offer a good transition, but we'll obviously focus on Virgil van Dijk's form, which that goal against Leicester was terrible.
just before we get onto that,
yeah, we'll focus on other things. But I just think there's behind Erling Haaland, there's underreported stories about it. And Bernardo Silva, with all his want away during the summer, I don't think he's produced the performances that we saw last season either.
But you know what I think has been the killer, like the fact that everyone was expecting Walker to come back because he was injured towards the end of last season. So like, okay, like he's going to have this sort of off season to come back. It was slightly shorter off season, but he played the first couple of games and then he got re-injured. So that's why, like, yeah, there's no backup for right back and there's no backup for left backs, because João Cancelo is like, okay, he can play both positions. So if Walker gets injured, then he can just fill in there. So he's the backup there. But then who's the backup then for left back, considering Zinchenko's out? So they had like 3 players for those 2 positions instead of having 4 players for those 2 positions. And I think losing Walker is what forced, I guess, that 3-4-3 change.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And just to put a bow on it, there is still a world where Man City line up with, Diaz and take your pick of one of the other 4 centre-back choices they had playing in the last 16 of the World Cup. Rodri in front of it, and then you've got João Cancelo and Walker either side as the fullbacks, and they go back to playing 4 at the back. And they look again like the best team in Europe, because I think if they get everyone fit, they can look like that when you can solidify that defence, get Walker and Cancelo back in it, and then have the beast that is Erling Haaland up front. They still can look like the best team in Europe. So while I'm down on them now, don't worry, City fans. I still see the scenario where you're back on top again and you're really going for that Champions League. But yeah, you're right. For the depth thing, for the league thing, it's not great that they let Zinchenko go. And I guess this might offer a good transition.
Before we just...
Yeah, go on.
Do you think it's also, if you throw it in, I know that with professional players, they want to win absolutely everything, and they want to give their all for everything, but I guess maybe there can be a little bit of like taking your eye off the ball and getting sidetracked. But do you think there's maybe a realignment of the focus to win the Champions League and maybe slightly less focus on the league itself?
Yeah, there could be that. But their group was pretty powder puff, so I don't think that focus has really taken place yet. I think that'll take place when we hit February, we hit the knockout stages. I think it might as well be a realignment of focus on who the rival is, because I think if they saw that it was Liverpool setting this Arsenal pace above them, then they'd be like, well, shit, we can't slip up now. Like, we know what kind of pace they can set, and we know that what kind of team they are. We've been fighting them for like 5 years now. But now that it's a different foe, it's a different rival, none of us really know what Arsenal are capable of yet. And to this point, it's very, very good. But yeah, maybe that focus hasn't been as laser sharp as it would have been had it been Liverpool setting this pace rather than Arsenal. But I think if Pep and his players listen to the criticisms that we, or me particularly, have of them, and let it, maybe giving the Arsenal the title of the platter, maybe that will refocus them, because you'd hate to be known as a club who are willing to do that, really, especially when you've got the links to their manager at the moment in Arteta. So yeah, I think that could be an aspect of it. But are we happy with where we are with City?
I think so. Just to finish it off, it's just City returning the favour for us selling them Adebayor, Sanya, Clichy, all those players back when
getting the project started.
Yeah, back when the Abu Dhabi group first took over. You know, it's just them returning in kind with interest.
Definitely. And I think the good transition here is the guy I kind of refuse to talk about in Erling Haaland, because everything's been said and it's just unbelievable what he's doing. I don't know if there's any sort of nuance, anything that hasn't been said that I can add to this. But the interesting part is comparing and contrasting to our good old friend, Mr. Nunez, who they both arrive at the same time. They both arrive to clubs who are expected to be 1 and 2 in the league again. Obviously, in Liverpool's case, that hasn't panned out. But it's just natural that we're going to compare these two guys, because that's when they came in. Nunez was bought for more money than Haaland, which is still crazy, but obviously Sydney took advantage of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, really, I'd say, unless Haaland has that clause in his contract that may allow him to go to Real Madrid. That's a pretty good opportunity in itself. But yeah, I think... And the point is, between these comparisons, because obviously it looks like Darwin is going to be a bigger part of this second half. Well, I say second part of the season after the World Cup. It looks like he's going to feature more prominently. And rightly so. You're going to spend all that money. It's time to unleash him. And the comparison, or the thing that stands out, if you do want to compare them to each other, is Erling Haaland has come through to this point in his career, and they're similar age as well. Haaland's, I think, a year or two younger. But to this point in his career, Erling Haaland has been the son of a former pro. He's played in academies pretty much his whole life, traveling all over Europe, I guess, as well, and learning different cultures. Very switched on, there's no doubt about that. You can see that. Very, very smart, very intelligent with everything that he does, and very, I guess, calculated as well with everything that he does, considering he's such a young age. Even if like teammates around him are starting to lose their head at maybe time wasting or something during a game, he's always switched on. He's just telling the ref, hey, make sure that we add this time, making sure that he gets the ball quicker. He's not losing himself in those moments. Whereas you compare him to our friend, I mean, Darwin. I think he's walking a tightrope for 90 minutes. He could lose his head at any moment. But the thing is, Haaland's a thoroughbred to this point. He has been bred for this. He's been trained for this his whole life, to be at a big club, to be one of the star men at a big club. And then you look at Darwin. He is absolutely still he's a wild Brumby. He is just out in the paddock. I think Liverpool have caught him, and now they're trying to tame him. They're trying to break him in and turn him into that sort of that guy, that horse that you can use, that thoroughbred. But he'll never be Erling Haaland. But I think we've got something potentially really special. But I'm always amazed at how raw he is. He is so raw, and to the point. I think the addition of him, while it might not be enjoyable for me because we haven't been very good this season, I think it makes Liverpool one of the must-watch teams of the season because Liverpool are going to give up chances. They're going to give up goals, but then you've got the attacking talent that they have and their attacking mentality, and then you throw this guy into the mix like I don't know, like a bath bomb into the water, and he's just who knows what he's gonna do. It's like a mystery bath bomb. It's like, what's he gonna do today? Who knows? And it's just he's so like maybe not for me because I want to see him score more goals, but I imagine for the neutral, it must be fun watching this guy because he's just all over the place, and he can do something really special, and he can do something really bad in pretty much the same minute. So I don't know. It's hard to compare these, but when I compare these two, it's just I got to use the horse analogy, and yeah, Erling Haaland's the thoroughbred, and we've got the wild Brumby who's been trying to be broken in by Klopp. But hey, I saw the stat on I think on one of the Instagram posts that Robert Lewandowski I think scored the same amount of goals and assists in his same first season as Darwin is on now. So if you think that Klopp can have that magic touch again, yeah, we might have something very special. And Darwin is so quick as well. When he can open up his stride, he can make defenders look like mincemeat. So yeah, it's just a fun player, but I wish he was a little less raw.
I think your horse analogy is like perfect, and it sort of reminds me. I think of like a Farlap movie that we watched back in high school, and like I think like Farlap was like I think he's like one of the greatest success stories of like horses, and like he wasn't necessarily wild, but like he got trained into the horse that he was. But yeah, like it's actually perfect that like Haaland was like trained since like before he could walk to become a footballer, whereas like Nunez sort of had to like grow up on the streets in Uruguay playing and like found his own way. Whereas like, I'm not saying that Haaland necessarily grew up with the silver spoon, but like would you say probably a lot easier to like he obviously had to work hard as well to get to where he is and like dedicate himself and make sacrifices, but it's interesting that there's like two completely different upbringings, and the narrative going into this season was it's going to be Liverpool versus City, it's going to be Darwin versus Haaland because are they around the same like height and build as well?
I think Darwin's probably a bit shorter. I mean, Haaland is 6'5", but yeah, I think Darwin's maybe 6'2" or something. He's pretty tall himself. But
they look very similar, and like they were in terms of their stature. But you got to also throw in now another one that you guys just signed.
Yes, of course.
Now
I think do we need to talk about Liverpool? Yeah, go on. Because Darwin, this will transition to another club as well.
Yeah, but Darwin, from what I've seen, even for Uruguay, he hasn't been playing as a centre forward. He's been playing more like a left wing or a left forward. And now that you guys have signed Gapko, how is that gonna line up? Oh no, what's happened here?
Oh no, I don't know. I'm gone.
And now
camera, please. All right, I'm back.
Oh, we just had a bit of.
Where are you?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm good.
I don't know why they did that.
I thought I touched something. We're back, boys. We're back. Damn, I just lost my question. We can't clip this and put it on TikTok now.
Well, all I know is you got me very excited by comparing Darwin Nunez to Farlap. If we can have a Farlap there, then I'll be very happy.
Well, my question was, how is your front three going to line up? Diaz is out for the rest of the season, isn't he? Or like pretty much
I believe so, yeah.
Pretty much till around the end. So now you got Nunez, Gapko, and Salah up front.
Jota's still coming back. Firmino's having a good season.
Jota, Firmino. But like, I'm guessing the front three is going to be Gapko and Nunez and Salah. Nunez, yeah, he's been playing more on the left side rather than centre forward as well. Gapko for Holland was playing, or Netherlands, he was playing a little bit more on the left side rather than through the centre as well in the World Cup. So how does that all line up then? Bring it all together for me.
Before I get onto this, because just before we get onto this, I think we need to talk about the only piece of football we need to talk about from Liverpool, and it wasn't even by them, but I don't know how to say his name. The Belgian centre back Fayez or Faze for Leicester. Did you see the 2 own goals? You must have seen the 2.
I haven't. No, I haven't seen it. No, I haven't.
Oh my god, you've got to see the 2 own. It's okay. So it's rare to even see 2 own goals by different players in one game. Then you couple that with the fact that the same player has scored 2 own goals in one game. Then you couple it with the fact that you watch the goals. You've got to watch these own goals. They are in.
I'm gonna bring them up. You keep talking while I watch.
We'll leave that. But like, once you see these, we'll get your live reaction while you watch them. But I'll transition on to the Gakpo. The Gakpo signing and topic and what we're going to do with the front three, because I think it is it an odd one? I don't know, because you've got one of the standout players from the World Cup and a player who was playing very well pre-World Cup for PSV anyway. So, I mean, there's that, and you've got him for a pretty reasonable price, I think, in today's market.
Man,
given that he's only 20.
Your defense was like Swiss cheese for that Leicester goal.
Oh yeah, that's.
Yeah, hang on. It's only 2-minute highlights.
Yeah, because that first goal for Leicester is.
Yeah, that was horrendous. Like, where's your defense? Like, he just walked through. Well, not walked, but walked through pretty much.
He might as well have. He pretty much did.
What the hell was with that own goal?
Yeah, did you get the looper?
Yeah, the looper. Gee.
Wait till you see the second, my friend.
And then it just falls like. It reminds me of that was it the Shilton goal against Germany in 1990 where it just like falls perfectly below the bar.
Yeah.
Oh,
perfect.
Like that. What? Oh my lord.
Yeah, how good's the finish?
That is
corner.
Oh my god. You know that it sort of reminds me of an own goal that I scored. Like it's probably not as bad as these ones, but it was just so shitty. Like a corner got flown in. And I was defending the back. I wasn't on the post, but I was defending the back around the back post area, and everyone missed it. And my foot was planted, and it just like hits my calf. Like it hits my calf muscle, and like my muscle just like takes like all the force out of the ball, and then the ball just like trickles in. Like I think the player that was on the back post actually moved off the back post, and it just trickles in. And but like it literally took all of the force out of the ball, and just like it was just so shitty. Like these aren't shitty. These are horrendous.
Oh, if he's trying to do that, I don't think he'd accomplish it as well as he has.
The first, but like the second one's just like bad. Like it's like you're running, and then like it takes the crappy, like it takes an unexpected like hit off the post, and like you can't change because you have all this momentum and you're running, and like you can't change the way your foot's landing or whatever. Like, but that first one, jeez, man, like it just nestles perfectly below the bar. It seriously reminds me of that the Peter. I think it was Peter Shilton in 1990 against Germany.
Yeah, crazy, man.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was so rare to see that. But yeah, I think that's the only thing that we need to talk about on the football. I think the Villa game was a bit hairy in places, but they came through at 3-1, and seeing what Villa just did to Tottenham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's actually a pretty good result.
Are we still
talk about Tottenham?
Yeah, we'll get into that.
No,
but
I was going to talk about the front three because you posed me with that question.
Get sidetracked a bit.
I think that's the way to look at it. At this point, we don't know how Jota's going to come back, but I think when Jota plays, he's a pretty important player in himself. I think while Firmino's having quite a good season, I think he's on the wane, has been for a few years. So I think he'll probably be moved on pretty soon, maybe at the end of the season, especially with how many options we have up there. But yeah, I'm happy with the Gakpo signing, and I want to transition this to another club. But I don't know how needed he was, and if he's taken away funds from potentially getting a central midfielder, I won't be too impressed with that. Even though I think we've got a really good player in Gakpo. But yeah, and I was messaging. Well, my brother asked if I'd seen the signing, and then I was just like, I don't really know where he's going to fit in. And then he said, well, probably as a Mane replacement. And then I thought, you know what, that's a pretty good call because it works pretty well with him just playing on the left. Him and Darwin could interchange as well, but him playing on the left, Darwin through the middle, Salah up front. And because I think Gakpo's tendencies are to be a scorer and creator, I think we could start maybe seeing him fill in what Mane has left us with, because I think Jota can't really fill in that role because he's more just a scorer. Whereas Mane created a lot for us. And I think Gakpo could have the same ability to do so. I think given his height, he might not be as good technically in the air as Mane, but given his height, he'll be just as dangerous probably. And when you couple that with maybe you start having Nunez and Gakpo in the box, arriving onto crosses, maybe from the other side, from Trent in particular, then you might have something quite dangerous there in itself. So yeah, that front three looks really good, but it's kind of like that meme of the poorly drawn horse, where you start drawing it really well and then it sort of turns to shit and then you draw it really well again. That's what our midfield kind of is like at the moment.
Yeah,
like no ability.
That's my question. Like you said, you're happy with the signing, but that's your first signing of this transfer window. But everyone knew you guys need midfield replacements, and yet you're signing another forward.
Yeah, it just reeks to me that they're waiting for Bellingham to 100% make his decision and waiting for that price to go down.
Real Madrid, I think,
when he does.
I think they offered 100 mil, didn't they?
Well, if they offered that, it'll be interesting to see because I actually don't get the feeling Bellingham's one to potentially just get blown away by the bright lights of Real Madrid. Now, he may end up going to Real Madrid just because he thinks it's the best option, but from what I can tell from the outside looking into to Bellingham, who just, for me, it's amazing how appeared to have his head switched on. He is at 19 years old. The fact that he captains Dortmund on occasion is enough for me to tell that, and the way he captains them as well. So, I don't think he's like that. I don't think he'll just think, oh, Real Madrid got to go. He might go there because he thinks it's the best footballing move, but I still fancy Liverpool's chances if they have enough money to do it. That's the point, I think. So maybe the point is that they're waiting. I hope they haven't taken anything away from the Kitty and the Gakpo signing. But all in all, Gakpo is a really good player, a decent price, and I think he offers us a good opportunity. And I'm in a comparing mood, but to compare him to another signing from the Eredivisie, who I think it's easy to compare him to, but Anthony at Manchester United, I know they paid probably double what we're going to end up paying for Gakpo, and I think based on definitely end product, he's not worth that. But what I will say is I think those signings are very similar in how I rate them because Manchester United clearly had a need. They needed more quality in front areas. Anthony is a quality player. Manchester United have money and they've never been adverse to spending it on players. And 100 million was just kind of the price of business. But I think all in all, because it's a signing that they needed more, I weight it the same as Gakpo signing for Liverpool for 50 million, even though if you just look at it from the financial perspective, Liverpool definitely got a better deal. But they got a player that they didn't need as much as Manchester United needed Anthony. And now we look at Manchester United, all of a sudden they have a game in hand on Newcastle and they could go above Newcastle in the table. And if they were to do that, the way I've been touting up Newcastle's potential title challenges, do I have to start putting Manchester United in that bracket as well now?
Before we get onto them, and just while we're on the Gapko signing as well, there was a lot of videos flying around. Welcome to Manchester United, Cody Gapko, as well. So not only did you guys sign what your brother said, a potential Mane replacement, but you've also taken away a signing that was pretty much number one on Man United's radar. So on what is or could become, if they keep on their trajectory, a direct rival. And I guess they're a direct rival no matter what, regardless of where they are on the table to Liverpool.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, so
but I think
add
if,
that
if
as well.
If United signed him, yeah, he's good insurance for Martial probably. But I actually think he and Rashford are very similar, and all of a sudden Rashford has become the £250,000 a week player that he probably should have been a few years earlier. But disciplinary whatever actions or not, he still comes on and scores the winner against Wolves. And yeah, I don't think you tinker with Marcus Rashford in the form he's in. I think you let him go, you let him keep playing, and you hope that he becomes the player that we expected him to. Because I think him and Gakpo are similar ages as well. Rashford might be a year or something older, but yeah, I think I don't know. So the question to you was: do we need to start putting United as fringe contenders for the whole title yet?
For the title, no. No, I don't think for the title.
But is there
this season or next season?
And I did say fringe. Well, next season you'd expect them to keep going, but they will. If they win their game in hand, they will be above Newcastle, and that's maybe a question of whether you put Newcastle in there or not. That's up to you. But if Arsenal continue to play the way they're playing, then I don't think we will really have a challenger. Maybe City's the only one I could see. But to your point, Arsenal's fixture list is very, very difficult over the coming weeks. We've talked about City's problems at the moment. If Arsenal do happen to lose one or two of those games, particularly playing against Manchester United.
Yeah, but at the Emirates.
Then all of a sudden, I know. But then all of a sudden, we have a scenario where United are actually in the thick of a title race. So things need to go their way. It's not in their hands. And to your point, I think I lean with you. I wouldn't be as certain as saying no, but I lean with you. If I have to give a yes or no answer, I'll give a no, just because. And I know I point to this maybe too much, but the goal difference worries me. They're not showing themselves to be a dominant team. Their goal difference doesn't suggest that. I know their points tally somewhat suggests that, but they have already lost 4 games this season, 3 or 4.
4.
So that's why I put Newcastle above them, to be quite honest, because Newcastle have lost 1 game. Their goal difference is fantastic. Their defense is the best in the league. So yeah, I have no qualms in putting them in a title race at this stage. Whereas Manchester United, I think for those reasons, will push me to say no, but we can't deny it anymore. They've had a great upturn in form since those opening 2 horror shows that we saw at the start of the season, where we didn't even think we'd be talking about them in the breath of top 4. And now look what they've gone and done. And now as well, they look quite good in doing it. So yeah, I would lean no, but I think we have to acknowledge how good United have been pretty much ever since those opening 2 weeks.
It probably helps that they've also gotten rid of Ronaldo as well. So there's one less problem for Ten Hag to deal with. But I still think that they're 11 points behind.
Let's focus on United though. Then let's not get bogged down in my stupid question, I guess.
Look, it's nice for them to dream, but I just think that they'll be playing
the condescending words of the Arsenal supporter. They'll be playing that in the weeks to come.
Yeah, like Ten Hag will Ten Hag will do the Arteta and he'll play this clip. Like, it's okay to dream.
Oh, that's good. You've just given him the bulletin board material.
Look, things are clicking along for them, but they still aren't that end product that Ten Hag wants, and he's done an excellent job in getting them to this point. But there's still probably a couple of signings behind where they need to be. I did hear my boy Juranovic is a possible right back signing he's on their radar, and he's also gotten the Gary Neville approval. The Gary Neville right back seal of approval. So
very similar, actually. I'd say Juranovic and G-Nev.
Oh man, Juranovic will blow him out of the water.
Playing style.
Neville doesn't really have any speed.
Hey, I'm talking about back in his heyday. I'm not talking about recent. 2007 onwards.
I still think Juranovic is quicker. But look, I think that there's still a couple of signings away from being up and around there.
Well, where do you put them then?
Man, considering that all these teams below them are faltering, like Liverpool aren't having the greatest season, Tottenham, we'll get onto them. Chelsea down in 9th. Didn't even. Yeah, like Chelsea as well. Like that's opened up a top 4 spot, but I guess like Newcastle have sort of replaced Chelsea in that sense, like because no one expected Newcastle to be there, no one expected Chelsea to be where they are. So I guess that's like in terms of position, it's like for like to an extent. Like no one expected Man United to be where they are, but they're sort of being. I feel that they're being handed this position more than what they have deserved to be in this position. Not by much. Not by much.
Yeah.
But considering that going into this season, everyone had their top 4 as City, Liverpool, Tottenham, and Arsenal. I'd say the majority of people. I think Chelsea would have been thrown in there as well. The majority of people were either Tottenham or Arsenal for 4th. I was always saying 2nd or 3rd for Arsenal, but more so 3rd for Arsenal. But yeah, I feel like because the teams around them are faltering too much, and they're handing them this position in the table.
Yeah, I look. I think United has always been our sticking point this season. This is the one I think we disagree on probably the most. I'm not going to verbally disagree because I think you laid out the case well. A few teams have slipped off, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham in recent weeks. So maybe, and there's no doubt that that's led to United potentially having a better league position than what they would if those teams were playing to their peak. But at the same time, I think United have done themselves favours in the way Ten Hag in particular, especially after the first 2 weeks where it looked like he would be a stubborn manager who was set in his ways, set in his principles, and principles that weren't necessarily going to work. I think I think we've already given him credit in earlier pods, but I'll say it again, like the way he's sort of adapted as he's been there. And I do love managers who are able to seemingly not have so much of an ego that they can't take on board criticism, even if it is just general public criticism, the groundswell of what opinion should be. And I think they started playing a little bit more direct, started playing less with De Gea from the back, although De Gea, and I guess the point is on Ten Hag, you can kind of see what good coaching has done to a lot of these players. I mean, the Aaron Wan-Bissaka reclamation project is in full effect after the World Cup break. He still makes a few positional mistakes, but he has that great 1v1 defending sort of reputation. David De Gea comes off his line a lot more than he ever has, which allows United to play further up the pitch. Casemiro coming into the club. I know Casemiro was already a world-class player, but I think he's evolving his game. And he's evolving his game.
While we're on the Casemiro point, does that guy ever get a yellow card?
Yeah, I know.
Dude,
Jesus. He can get away with so many tackles.
I think we're talking...
He was doing that in La Liga for years as well,
But I think we're talking...
never gets a card.
In Champions League, like in those games against like City and PSG, you're like, and Chelsea, like I think in the Chelsea like double fixture or something, like I think he played against Chelsea in both games. But like regardless of what games they were, but like in one or two of the games, like he should have got 2 yellows. It's like what the hell, like, and I think like he finished the game with no yellows at all. So. Yeah, I think
part of the ability.
And I think this Wolves game, I think like he made some like really bad challenges. It's like this is a yellow, like, and he just walks away from it. It's like, dude, like, what the hell? Is how does he get away with it?
I don't know. But he's been doing it for years, so he must do something. But yeah, I think in terms of ball playing, he's evolving his game. I've loved seeing in recent weeks how a lot of the pods that I listen to, a lot of the people on him have been pretty quick to sing up Casemiro's praises, and I'm just like, well, like where was this when they made the signing? This guy was coming in as the best holding midfielder in the world probably, and we didn't have that much fanfare when he was signed. So
Soonest never rated earlier, him.
But True. Come on, we know what we think about Souness.
Well, I know what you think about Souness.
But yeah, I think he's evolving because he's been asked to play more with the ball, as well as do his old role of filling in gaps. And Rashford as well, as we've seen, is steadily improving, steadily getting back to where I guess that Man United thought he was when they offered him that crazy contract. And Martial as well, if he can stay fit. I guess he's always been a pretty good player, but he's fitting into the front four very nicely. So yeah, I think Ten Hag and I think United themselves deserve some credit. Luke Shaw's back as well, and he's looking quite good. He's doing his best Lissandro Martinez impression at the moment at centre back. So yeah, I think United are strong. I think that midfield worries me a little bit because Eriksen, when the game goes against you, is not the most solid guy in there. But when you have the game in your control, he can do things in terms of his range of passing and his creativity that unlock doors. So you've sort of got your trade-off there. But yeah, I think United are looking really strong. I don't know where I ultimately put them. They could just miss out. They could go on a run and put themselves in the thick of a title challenge. I think their floor and their ceiling, their floor has now raised a lot more from where I thought it was at the start of the season. But their ceiling has remained still pretty high. But yeah, ultimately, all in all, I put them probably as the fourth best team in the league at the moment. And I'm going to let you decide where you want to go next in terms of who you want to talk about next.
Well,
because I have a few topics on everyone.
I'm just looking at United's fixtures. They got Bournemouth tomorrow. And then they have City on the 14th at Old Trafford during the day though, so no gremlins in the night. But they did beat Arsenal during the day. Then they have Arsenal. They have Arsenal on the 22nd, not City. So yeah, they have Arsenal on the 22nd at the Emirates. So I don't think unless Partey gets injured, knock on wood. I don't think we see a repeat of that, especially at the Emirates. I think Arsenal have a 100% record at the Emirates. But then again, we're facing Newcastle
skipping
tomorrow.
Ahead a few pods.
I know, but
yeah, we've got that one.
But you know how we talked about tricky fixture lists, and for instance, City have Chelsea, United, Arsenal, and then Arsenal have Newcastle, Tottenham, United, City in the next 6-7 fixtures. United don't have anything like that. After that City game, they have Liverpool on March 4th.
Yeah, there you go. So they could put together a run.
They could, but
you don't want them to.
I don't want them to, but I don't. I think they'll just miss out on top four because I just don't think that midfield is. I don't think it's that great, and the forward line isn't convincing me either. And I watched the Wolves game, and I know you can't really take games in isolation, but I don't know. I don't think they were that great against Wolves either. I know they got the win, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That game probably deserved to be a draw as well.
Yeah,
but. That's what having an informed Marcus Rashford does, and if you've got players like that, you've got a chance. So I'm interested. Talk about one of the teams you expect to finish above Manchester United, then, who obviously we haven't talked about. So,
well, do I expect Tottenham to finish above City. United, the way they're going?
Yeah, well, okay. So you want to do the Tottenham thing now?
Well, you said I get to pick, but
yeah, but do you think they're going to finish above United?
I think
definitely
I think
do not at
Liverpool.
this stage.
I think Liverpool do.
Yeah, I think that's a better shout.
I think Liverpool do. But then, for instance, I can't necessarily see Newcastle just falling off the rails. I can't say
So
that.
you think Liverpool and Newcastle will finish top four as things stand? Obviously, as facts change, opinions change. But
Yeah,
as we sit here now,
I think so. I reckon Liverpool have the manager and the players to make a run and string together some games and finish fourth by the end of the season. Similar to that season where Van Dijk got injured.
I want to believe that. I do want to believe that. But the football and my eyes tell me that United are a better team than Liverpool at the moment.
Probably
but I know Liverpool's ceiling
That's the
can
thing.
be a lot higher, and they can put a run. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we know that, and we've seen that. Is this the same team? That's something I don't know. Is this team does this team have the ability to do that? That's something I don't know, because while we're gonna, I don't want to go back to Liverpool, but while we're gonna have options up front, we're not going to be able to control games in midfield, and that defense still looks leaky as all hell, as you just watched Dewsbury Hall just walk through our defense against Leicester. So at the moment, I fancy, my eyes and my footballing brain fancies United to finish above Liverpool, because I think they look a lot more solid. They have another player that I didn't mention was they have Raphael Varane for the first time. They haven't had him in recent seasons, whether that be injuries or whether that just be he just hasn't played well. But he finally looks like a good World Cup winning, multiple Champions League winning centre back who is still the right side of 30. He finally looks like that player. So if they can keep him fit as well, yeah, at this stage, I think I would swap Liverpool out for United, to be quite honest. But yeah, I guess so. That means should we do Newcastle now, or are you more keen to put some, maybe not dirt just yet, but do you want to do the Tottenham thing?
Let's go Tottenham.
He was all too happy to oblige.
Nah, because it's also fresh on my mind. Apparently, Conte, he was complaining again about signings. I think he mentioned. I need to actually watch his press conference, but because it was one of the guys on Arsenal Fan TV said that apparently Conte said that Arsenal are coming into this transfer. Caleb, where have you gone? No, Caleb. We've lost him. We have lost Caleb. We will be right back until we get this sorted.
Yeah.
All right, we're back. I don't know what happened. Well,
Me
Caleb,
neither.
apparently your Discord updated in the middle of the pod.
I've got these new things now.
Yeah. All right. Now, where was I? Yeah. So basically, Conte was saying that Arsenal are entering this transfer window with a bazooka, whereas Tottenham are entering it with like a pistol. I need to actually watch the press conference, but apparently that's what he said. And it sort of got me thinking, the only reason why I guess that analogy probably holds true is the positioning of the table. When you're winning, or when you're around, when you're a top club and you're in the hunt for silverware, players want to join you. They're more willing to join you. It's similar to Tottenham finishing fourth last season. I think I heard Perisic here. They showed an interview here at the beginning of the season, and he was saying that he was actually watching the finish of the Premier League season, and he was actually deciding between Arsenal and Tottenham, and he chose Tottenham because they got Champions League football. I think he sort of fits the Arsenal mold, maybe not age-wise, but in terms of work rate, he would fit in.
Not as well as Tottenham though. He fits in so much
Yeah,
easier.
and plus he's worked with Conte as well. But he did say that though. How true that is. How willing Arsenal were to pursue him, I'm not sure, but he did say that. But then you also have to state the fact that didn't Tottenham make like 6 signings? So they got like Richarlison, they got Perisic, they got Bissouma, they got Spence. I know he's like the signing. He did make some good showings for Nottingham last season. I think did they get one other player? Longley as well. So that they actually made like 5 or 6 signings and like pretty good signings where you're like, okay, some of these players one or two of these players probably would be in the starting 11, but most of them would be more as squad backup. So you can't say that the club haven't necessarily backed Conte, but in having said that, Conte seems like he's a little bit on edge and he wants to get the hell out of Tottenham. Like coming out with comments like that.
What's new? Weren't we here at this point last year after the Burnley defeat? He threw all the players under the bus. Remember, he's had one foot out of the door the whole time he's been there. It seems like an odd marriage as well. I think he's done a good job to get him top 4 last season. Whether that was their good doing or a little bit of an Arsenal capitulation, we can argue about that. But I don't know, man. Is it the one thing I think from Tottenham, and maybe the older I get, and through the World Cup I thought this as well, can we put to bed the old adage of, well, it's a good sign that you're winning, but you didn't play well? Can we start putting that to bed? Because at some point, you need to start playing well. You can't keep winning games by getting lucky, by conceding territory, by conceding chances, conceding shots, balls into the box, and then hoping to hit on the counter-attack when things break right. And to be fair, Tottenham are very good at hitting on the counter-attack. It definitely is a weapon that they can use. But it can't be the only tool in your arsenal. And you can't continue to just play badly, play passively, be outdone, outfought by the opposition, outrun. You can't continue to do that and play bad. Like, now, there are different ways to play well. But I think it's time to put to bed the old adage of, you know what, it's a great sign that they picked up all 3 points, but they didn't play well. Sometimes you could get away with that. That's fair. But when it becomes a constant thing, you're just not playing well. It's not a good sign anymore. You're just not playing well. You're not clicking as a team, and you're not a very good team. And I think it might be time to get to that point with Tottenham. Now, having said that, they do have one world-class player in Harry Kane. And I might have to downgrade them from having 2. Because Son has been invisible this season. He has been terrible, miscontrolling balls, just doing a bit too much hero ball, getting his head down, trying to beat too many tackles. I thought he was really poor in the Villa game. So, and I think he's been pretty poor all season. I know, again, another comparison, but Mo Salah's copped a lot of flack for not being the player we expected because he got that contract. Son deserves as much criticism as Salah because I think he's been just as poor, and I'm at the point where I'm nearly ready to downgrade him from world class and leave Harry Kane as the only one left standing. And I've lamented their poor personnel at the back. I think Conte tries to compensate for that by playing the 3 centre backs so that he's got more cover there. I've lamented the goalkeeper who was at fault for another goal. The midfield without Bentancur is non-existent. Maybe Bentancur takes the place of the other world-class player because he's really good. And when he's missing, Tottenham really feel it because they miss a driving force in there. But the wing-backs, Perisic is fine, but he's probably not as effective as I expected him when he came. The hodgepodge that you've got at right back, Emerson Royale, Matt Doherty. We haven't seen enough of Jed Spence. I think he should start playing a little bit. Maybe he freshens it up with his usefulness. Maybe you don't want to kill him by putting him in this environment where Tottenham are playing very well. But when are Tottenham going to play well? They haven't played well all season, and I think this is just indicative of how they've played, the results they've got in recent weeks. And I think it was more they were getting lucky earlier in the season rather than they had this great resolve that meant that they were picking up points when they weren't playing well. At some point, you've got to play well.
You know what sort of this reminds me of? Like, if I'm going to make the comparison, I want to stop going towards Arsenal, but I guess they're sort of showing a blueprint or a model.
Easy. Yeah.
Like you, if I'm going to make the comparison, this Tottenham team seems like it's Pochettino's team from 3 or 4 seasons ago that has aged, and they're just trying to jam in random sort of replacements rather than thinking about a project as a whole the way that Arsenal has. Whereas, I think I mentioned it, the only player from the starting 11 that won the FA Cup when Arteta first came in is Xhaka. So he's replaced pretty much every single player in that team, and they're all around the same age of 20 to 24, 25, with, you have Xhaka who's I think 29 or something, or 28. So there's like 3 or 4 players that like are closer to 30, but the majority of the team is, 20 to 24. Whereas this Tottenham team, it's like they're all aging players. Like Kane is already 31, isn't he? Son is already 30.
Well, there's your point. Those two right there are your point, because Arsenal, to be fair, Arsenal had the luxury of being able to do a complete rebuild, because once Aubameyang went off form, no, not with Harry Kane and Son, because as you point out, they're around 30. You can't go full rebuild and waste 2 or 3 seasons of Harry Kane and Son, because they're going to leave. They're just going to up and leave. They're going to go, and you can't. As Tottenham, for me, I think I can see why it's more important to keep Harry Kane than go for a complete new rebuild. And by the way, do we know that the rebuild is going to be fruitful? So I think their approach isn't completely wrong. I think they may have strengthened in some wrong areas, particularly centre-back. They need a bedrock at centre-back and goalkeeper.
Midfield.
Any Conte team needs that. Midfield, Bentancur's a pretty good player that they got in, and Basuma's a pretty good player in himself as well. Up front, they're pretty good as well. Kulusevski has been a revelation since he's come as well, and they're sorely missing him. Yeah, sorry.
But are they going to get 150 mil for Kane now? No.
Well, not now.
No,
but he's still a world-class player.
They'd be lucky to get 60 or 70, I reckon.
Oh, well, you're not accepting that. If that's what people are offering, then you're just saying, well, we don't need that, because Harry Kane as well is not a player who really kicks up a fuss.
But honestly, if they wanted to go down that model route, like, yeah, the fans might not have been happy, but it's like, okay, you sold Kane for like 120 mil, but then if you're starting to bring in, if you actually have a proper model in place, this is actually starting to lean more towards United, where they're swapping managers in every season, every 2 seasons, instead of having an actual model in place like you did with Redknapp, and then transitioning into Pochettino.
Yeah, that's fair, but I still believe there's different ways to skin a cat, so that could be successful in its own right. But yeah, I think the investment, they could have invested in different positions, because the bedrock is not solid enough. And I think that this group of players could be playing a little bit better as well. So I won't go too critical, because I think, the point was, I think you need to make Harry Kane and Son not happy, but you need to show them, hey, we want to contend now, because we understand you guys are in your primes. You guys are probably some of the best players we've had in the club's history, and we want to make sure we try and put you in position to succeed. So whether a rebuild's coming down the road, that definitely will be something they might look at. But for now, I think their strategy was right. It was just poorly executed for me in some areas. But some signings as well have been very good. Kulusevski and Bentancur in particular. And if I want to get critical on teams like Man City, why the hell were you letting those 2 players go for seemingly nothing? Not a big deal was made about their transfers. I certainly didn't think they'd be as good as they have been, but when you get a chance to work with players day in, day out, surely you can see something that would suggest that they're going to be the players that they've both become, really, at Tottenham. So yeah, they haven't missed with all their signings, but I just think there's some key areas where they need better players, and they haven't addressed those areas, and that's probably why Conte feels the way he feels.
But why do you think things aren't clicking? Because I think we can all agree. And at the start of the season,
I can't.
they made pretty good signings, like you'd say on paper. But like things just haven't clicked. I know Son has been like he had injury issues at the start of the season, but I don't know. Like, I kept on saying, like, and you had your spiel at the beginning of this segment where like they were winning games, but they were winning them poorly. They were conceding chances, they were conceding shots, they were winning more based on luck. The best, the best case in point is the Chelsea game where they managed to scrape through and get a point out of that when they were played off the park. But yeah, like then also the Bournemouth game as well. They managed to get all 3 points there, but they were destroyed by Bournemouth, at least in the first half, and then Bournemouth just capitulated in like the final 15 minutes or so. Yeah, like, I don't know what's going on there.
For me, it's probably two main things. The first is, and I'm going to say it again, he does not trust, and I don't think the team trust the centre backs and the goalkeeper. And you can trust Romero, that's fine. He's a World Cup winner now. You can somewhat trust Longley, but whoever's in the middle of it, there's no trust. Eric Dyer, no way. No chance. You need an upgrade there. And Hugo Lloris for years now has been this unreliable goalkeeper. I know he turns into somewhat a different guy when he plays for France in the World Cup, but he hasn't been good for years, and there's no trust there. And I don't think there's any there's any reason to trust Eric Dyer and Hugo Lloris. I think that one's been screaming out, and that's their two positions you must be solid in if you're going to endure a long season, because we always say it. This is an old adage that I'm going to keep using rather than it's a good sign that you picked up points while not playing well. But the old adage that I'll keep using is defenses do win titles and championships. You need to be solid at the back. You need to have that reliability, knowing that, hey, we don't need to score 4 goals this game to win the game. We can probably get by on 1 or 2, but Tottenham don't have that security. They keep conceding early. They keep conceding 2-goal leads early in games. For me, because those key areas are not very good. And the other thing is, I'm not a big fan of 3-4-3s. I think it's much like when I first started analysing football, I didn't really like 4-2-3-1s. I think they've sort of evolved, and now teams are playing them probably in a more aesthetically pleasing way that I enjoy a little bit more. But now the 3-4-3 is my bugbear formation. It's a formation where I think the angles aren't right to pass, like I was talking about with City. Those two midfielders, those two central midfielders get overrun by teams if they want to put in an extra man in there. You can't press high up the pitch because those two central midfielders get overrun. You need the wide players, as Tottenham do, to tuck in next to the central midfielders. I think that's the right tactic, but what happens there, you become super passive, and you're basically playing a 5-4-1. And then what are you meant to do in a 5-4-1? Harry Kane's not going to be able to press everyone from up front. But now you need the wide midfielders to go and join, but they can't join because now they leave too much space around the central midfielders. So I think it's just a formation that leaves you with too many deficiencies around the park, I think. And yeah, just they don't play it particularly. I know that it can be a good formation, but the way they play it isn't particularly good. And I've always preferred, if they're going to play a 5 at the back, I'd rather it be a 5-3-2. Because I think you can press higher up the pitch, and now you can play Son as more of a supporter for Kane. Maybe Kulusevski becomes more of a central midfielder in his balance, because I think his physicality can do that. And when you get Bentancur back, they'll look better for it. So, yeah, at the moment, a big problem is Bentancur, but for the season, those two things, I think, are my main factors why it just hasn't been working for Tottenham.
Is there any signings that could fix the issues? Because I think Pickford has been rumoured to sign, and also Maguire.
Well, Pickford for me is a much of a muchness with Lloris. They're goalkeepers who make mistakes, want to play out from the back, want to do all this. I think they're pretty much the same goalkeeper, except you're getting a younger version in Pickford. So I wouldn't go down that route personally. I think before the season, I suggested maybe a Sergio Roberto who could play as a different style of right wing back, who could come into midfield and help with their creativity. I suggested before the break Danny Parejo from Villarreal, who I still think continues to be a very, very good player. Maybe the defensive work scares Conte about him, but he's someone who can create for them, and they sorely miss creativity in this team, and a link-up guy who can deliver the ball forward. So, and I'm looking at these profile of players because I think Tottenham could probably afford the wages. They want experienced players because Kane and Son are in their primes, and they want to adhere to that sort of timeline. And they're players who I don't think would command a huge transfer fee given their age. So they're kind of players that I'm looking at. It's funny that they're both Spanish and they're both those type of creative players. But if it's not that, centre backs off the top of my head.
Well,
I don't know. Is there anyone who?
He's been rumored.
Yeah, Maguire might be a good signing because I think he'd fit it well into a three at the back as the central centre back. I think he fills me with more confidence than Dyer, which is funny to say about Harry Maguire. But at least after seeing the World Cup, there's a player there. But yeah, is he someone he's not going to make him a title challenger? He might shore them up enough to get into top four. The goalkeeper, I don't know who's screaming out to be that choice. Maybe Keylor Navas, but we haven't seen him play in so long. I'm always amazed when I see the PSG bench and Keylor Navas is on it. But he had a bit of a stinker for Costa Rica in the World Cup. So I don't know, man. Nothing's screaming out for those two key positions, but they also do need a sort of different profile in terms of creative players and players who can dictate tempo a bit more as well. So they're the kind of players I'm looking at, I think, if I'm Tottenham.
Well, we'll see how they go, but they're just dropping points left, right, and center at the moment. Now, your pick of the litter, well, of the bunch, Newcastle or Chelsea? Who do you want next?
Let's do Chelsea, and we'll finish on Newcastle, and then a little wrap on Europe just before what the other two leagues.
Oh, man, I don't know what to say on Chelsea. It seemed like they were trying to sign every single player left, right, and center, and I don't know what they're like. I know now, like the narrative might be like, oh, projects. What's the project that's at Chelsea?
I'm not sure, but they have a lot of money to fund it, so that's always a little bit dangerous. I think they could somewhat stumble into good players. I think on the football side, what we've seen since we've been back, personally, I find a little bit more encouraging. Although one thing I do not find encouraging is how much of a Section 8 Mark Cucurella seems to be. He looks like a deer in the headlights. He looks like he cannot cope with this level of, whether it be football or whether it be pressure. But something about that Chelsea move, that price tag, man, he is not looking the part at all at the moment. I think if I was a Chelsea supporter, I'd be pretty fearful on the outlay we put on a player who, at the moment, looks pretty subpar. So I'm a bit worried about there. Obviously, they're unlucky because they missed their best player again, but it's becoming all too familiar, and Reece James continually going out with injury, and I do think he's their best player at the moment. He can do Trent impressions, he can do Theo Hernandez impressions, he can do Rudiger impressions when he plays wide centre back. He's so versatile. He's such a good player. He can do a bit of everything. So they miss his creativity and his defensive ability. But I am pleased to see that they've gone to a back four with Koulibaly and Thiago Silva playing next to each other. For Chelsea's sake, I hope that continues, even though Koulibaly still just has not adapted to the Premier League yet. It might take a whole season, but he's not young.
Do you think it's also a language barrier there?
It could be.
How good is his English?
He has... I'm not too sure, but he has been at Napoli for a long time, and now he's trying to adapt to a different league and a different team and different expectations as well. Chelsea have higher pressure than Napoli, you'd have to say. So he's coming to grips with that. I wish for his sake that it was a bit quicker, but it hasn't been. Thiago Silva still looks imperious at 38, which is incredible. Obviously, still no Chilwell. The fullbacks are just constantly injured at Chelsea. Kovacic just came back for the draw at Forest for the last 30 minutes or so, so at least they have him. Kante hopefully comes back for them. Jorginho continues when he doesn't have Kante next to him. He continues to be overrun in midfield. And I guess at the moment, Kai Havertz is looking a bit better, I must say. He's looking just a bit better in that number 9 role. So, and Pulisic has come back from the World Cup in higher spirits, but he probably needs to have some end products soon. Otherwise, his confidence will go back dipping again. But Chelsea have a lot of players who have come back to the squad who have had good World Cups. I mean, Hakim Ziyech hasn't started a game, but he came off the bench against Forest as well. So him and Pulisic are the main ones you're thinking, look, they're players who were on the fringes, but they had good World Cups. Maybe they come back strong. Koulibaly the same. So I'm happy they're playing 4 at the back. I think Koulibaly and Thiago Silva have the potential to be a really good centre-back partnership for at least the rest of the season. But they need Reece James back, and they need to sort of white-knuckle it in terms of the attacking options because they're not really fulfilling you with that much confidence, but they have Christopher and Cuckoo coming in the summer and who knows who else. So I still don't fancy him to finish top 4, but I at least see an avenue where they can finish top 4. But the last thing I'll finish on Chelsea is I think we've also got to be worried about Graham Potter. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's been a marriage made in heaven. I don't think the fans have taken to him just yet, and I don't think there has been a reason with the results to take to him. Although I don't really blame Graham Potter for all of that because I think Chelsea have spent their money pretty stupidly last summer. But yeah, that's something we need to flag and keep an eye on as well. So yeah, Chelsea are definitely the weakest of all the contenders, or the proper contenders for top 4 at the moment.
Well, even Tuchel was complaining about the signings that were being made during the summer, like that they weren't what he wanted and whatnot. And now Potter is stuck with, holding the bag. So he has to try and make things gel together and glue things together. And, when you have Chilwell still out as well, I believe. So you have like two of your best fullbacks out. So you mentioned Cucurella, but it's weird that he can't get a tune out of Cucurella considering he had him at Brighton. Unless it's just this level of football, maybe he's not. Yeah. But I don't know how much because he played Premier League and he looked good against these players. So how is he not then playing to that expectation or whatnot? So.
Oh, it's not the level of competition. That's for me. If you wanted to point to something, it's the level of scrutiny being at a club like Chelsea comes with. But obviously, you play at Brighton, you're more loved if you look like a player like that. At Chelsea, you're just another player, and now you're sort of sticking out as the player who's not very good
and who had that kind of
scapegoat
and who had that kind of price tag as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of Brighton fullbacks, I guess Eric Lamptey. Do you rate him? And
yeah, he's more a wing back though. I don't really rate him as like an out and out right.
Where could he go? Do you think? Could he go to one of the top clubs or no? I was thinking United. Or no?
Not in a back 4, and I don't see Ten Hag change it to a back 5. But Tottenham, I think he offers something a little bit different as a right wing back.
But they just got Jed Spence.
Well, maybe start playing Jed Spence then.
Yeah.
I want to see more of him. What's he about?
Yeah, tell us a story. So, do Chelsea get a European spot? So is that top 7 then, or top 6? Top 6.
Oh yeah, with Conference League now.
Yeah, I think it's 7. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they will. Who have we got above them? Obviously, Arsenal, City.
Liverpool,
Newcastle,
Fulham.
United, Liverpool. I don't think Fulham will hold on. Because I think Chelsea are only 4 points behind Liverpool with a game in hand, or 3, or no. Don't tell me. I
Yeah,
haven't watched the game
because we
this
can't.
morning. So
Yeah, so
yeah,
for
no.
for our viewers, we can't. So I'm basing this on Liverpool playing 16 games, so not today's game that has already been, because Caleb hasn't watched today's game. So Liverpool are on 28 points, 16 games played. Chelsea are on 25 points, 16 games played.
Yeah,
So one game, one win.
that's what I thought it was at the end of the weekend. So they're not that far adrift, really. They just they look the least convincing. I think they probably they probably just sneak into Europe. Maybe they miss out. Maybe they finish 8th if Newcastle continue. And I guess that's the segue. And I guess that's the club that they would usurp. And Newcastle would have to drop off a lot, wouldn't they? But yeah, I think we need to talk about Newcastle, given that they're third in the table and we haven't talked about them yet. And given that it's this time of year, and given that they've had this investment in the last 12 months or whatever, so we're at a time where they can strengthen. They sit third in the table, and they're fringe title contenders. I know they got that draw at home to Leeds, but I thought it was a game they definitely should have won. They had enough chances to win. Leeds caused them a few problems, to be fair, but yeah, I thought Newcastle should have won, but maybe Almiron didn't show up. Are we worried about him regressing? Like, I guess the question to you is, have I been too high on Newcastle in the recent weeks? Well, and another question is, where to upgrade in January? Two-parter.
Well, I've been pretty much saying, I think everyone's been singing their praises.
Yeah.
Going into that World Cup period and coming out of it, and yeah, they didn't get the win against Newcastle. Hang on, let me just. Damn it, I'm still stuck on United. Manchester United, that is. Was it at? No, it was at home as well that they drew.
Yeah, at home against Leeds. So not a great result there.
Yeah, but they put Leicester to the sword on Boxing Day. I don't know. I think we need to see how they go. We need to see how they go against Arsenal tomorrow, because that will then I guess say whether this was like in isolation against Leeds. And as an Arsenal fan, I'm like, shit. They just put in a. I didn't watch the game, so I'm not sure what the performance itself was like, but they didn't get a result. So now they might be more inspired or more revved up to get a result against Arsenal. But overall, like, they're having an absolute fantastic season. I'm not sure where they would need to improve. Maybe get, because like they signed Isak, but then he got injured and he looked pretty good.
All right, I'll throw 2 names at you and then I'll throw 2 positions at you. So the first name and the position is left back, and I think, given that they have this financial clout now, I think they could maybe pull this off. But Reynaldo from Atletico Madrid.
But Dan Burn has been playing really well.
Yeah, they're playing really well. But I think if you want to finish top 4 and challenge for the title, maybe I think you need an upgrade there. And Dan Burn would be a good deputy, and Dan Burn would be good cover at centre back again as well. So yeah, Dan Burn has at least proven himself to be a valuable squad member for the coming years. But yeah, I think maybe a little upgrade there in a Reynaldo, who's been fantastic this season. A defensive-minded left back, really solid, good on the ball as well, better than Dan Burn to that point. So yeah, I think you could look at that, and I think they could pull that off, getting a player from Atletico, especially given Atletico haven't been great. Reynaldo didn't play in the first game back for Atletico. I don't know what happened there, but I think he's been probably Atletico's best player. So that one might be one to look at. And the other one, again from La Liga, is Frank Kessie, because I think they need a central midfield upgrade.
He's rumoured with Tottenham.
With Tottenham, yeah, and that's what made me think of it. Because I know Tottenham can afford his wages, but I think Newcastle can afford his wages as well. And that might be one where Newcastle can't do anything to break financial fair play, but they could look at just getting him in on loan until the end of the season, or maybe a year and a half loan for the next season and a half. And then you could look at what you've got there, and I think if they've got the player that he showed himself to be at AC Milan, they could have a really nice piece next to Bruno Guimaraes. And I guess Joelinton, although Joelinton now is sort of playing more as the left winger in that Mario Mandzukic role that he did for Juventus for all those years, and Willock's playing as the central midfielder. So maybe you need two central midfielders eventually, but I don't think you want to do that in this transfer market. And then the other two positions that you could look at, I don't think they'll get all four players for all four of these positions, but another sort of forward. It doesn't have to be a striker, but a forward across the line and a centre back. I think they're the four positions that need the most upgrading, because every other position is pretty solid for Newcastle, to be fair. And even left back's pretty solid, to your point. Dan Burn's been playing well. Even the central midfielders have been playing well. But if they can maybe get two of those four in, then that could really catapult them to a proper top four challenge, if not a title challenge.
I was going to say a forward because Wilson has had his injury troubles in the past, and Isak is he came in and then he got injured. So I'm not sure what his timeline is in regards to coming back. I'm going to throw out one that is rumoured with Arsenal and United, but what about João Felix? They have the funds to. I think he's not up for sale right now, but Atletico are willing to loan him out. So, is that someone that they could potentially sign, even for the 6 months left?
It could be, especially if it's a loan. I do have question marks on his wanting to go to Newcastle.
Yeah, because wouldn't he rather go to an Arsenal or a United?
Yeah, and another thing is I also have question marks about Eddie Howe wanting to manage a star at this point of the project. I think he's really benefited from having a close-knit group that he has at Newcastle with no real standout sort of stars. Maybe the only one you could say would be Guimaraes. But he is such a work... Not even, because he doesn't even start anymore. He's like a joker in the pack. Yeah, potentially, but he's never played at a high level. Neither has Guimaraes, to be fair. But Guimaraes, clearly, when you watch it, it's like, that guy is like one of the best midfielders in the world. But his work rate and his character so far has proven himself to be really good at gelling into that group. And so I think that's been one of their advantages. So I wouldn't want to tinker with that too much, especially with a player of João Felix's reputation. So I'd be a bit apprehensive just on that fact. But if it is a loan signing, he definitely has the quality to be an addition to the squad and to the team. So it could be one that they look at. I'm still enamored by Frank Kessie in particular, because I think there's potential to get him on a loan, because what the hell is he doing at Barcelona? Like, Barcelona don't need him. He doesn't play there. He never plays there. So, like, what are we talking about? I have no idea why he's been wasted at Barcelona when for me, there's so many clubs that could use the services of Frank Kessie.
Arsenal should get him. He sort of looks like Partey as well. He has that sort of like block head. But do you think Newcastle continue the way they are? Do you think they finish top 4, or do they finish top 6?
Newcastle for me are the same as Arsenal. As things stand, I do have not questions, but there are potential questions there for them. I.e., they take a few defeats, just like what we could see with Arsenal in coming weeks. But as things stand, there is absolutely no reason why they shouldn't be in the top 4 at the end of the season, because all I've seen is a very, very good team. The team that I, at the moment, rate as the second best team in the whole of the Premier League. So, and that's not a small sample size anymore. That's 16, 17 games now. Because I look at those metrics that I was talking about for United, best defense in the league, third best goal difference in the league, I believe, and third on the table with only one defeat. I mean, they're things that I look at as much as I do at points, really, at this stage of the season. So, yeah, I've been very impressed with them, and there is absolutely no reason why they can't finish top 4, especially if they keep playing the way they're playing and maybe get a few reinforcements.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their fixture list as well, and they don't necessarily have any I guess you'd say, like, besides the Arsenal game, there's no top 6 club until Liverpool, and that's like middle to end of February. And then I think that
so they're a
February
good
March
set.
period is going to be tricky for them because then they have City, and then they have Manchester United as well, and then they have Tottenham in April. So that
So
yeah.
we'll see around that time for sure. As long as they keep it going until that point as well, because there's always a chance that they maybe played down to a level that we expected them to play at the start of the season. But as things stand, they look great. So
Yeah,
there's no
look
reason for me to
easy on
say
the eye.
otherwise. Yeah, really good, really intense. Good on nearly every aspect of the game as well. Can play with possession, can play out of possession, can defend to a really high level. Yeah, just really impressive, I've got to say, Newcastle. So, yeah, no reason why I see them dropping out the way things stand. And I think
before we get onto
go on.
the rest of the leagues or the rest of Europe, we haven't done any reviews or anything like that. But like, I guess the one game that does stand out that's coming up this, I guess tomorrow. And let me just check if there's any other games. But obviously Newcastle versus Arsenal. We won't do a review, but I guess who do you think comes out on top?
We'll do a review, but later in the week. But yeah, the preview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do you think comes out on top there, though?
Man, at the Emirates, right?
Yep, at the Emirates.
I've got to say Arsenal for home ground factor, but I don't have much to preview in this game. I'm just looking forward to this game so much. I think this is maybe the tastiest Premier League game in terms of teams playing well that we've had the whole season. And we're finally here because obviously Arsenal haven't played City or Newcastle yet. So this is the first time we get to see. I know they've played United. They didn't quite come through that test. So now they get another chance at a test in the top level, at least for how teams are playing. So I'm just super excited for this one. I can't wait to talk about it after we've seen it later in the week. But in terms of preview, I'll give Arsenal the edge just for home ground advantage, but this should be an excellent game. That's all I'm thinking.
I'm really looking forward to it. I can see it being similar to City Newcastle, where it's like very end to end.
Yeah, I can go with that. But although I think Arsenal have been a better containing team than Man City this season, so if they can push Newcastle back, then their containing play has been very dominant this season. It'll be interesting to see if they can contain Newcastle deep. But as well, I don't think Newcastle are the type of team who will allow themselves to get pressed back. They have a very good forward press, very good counter press, and then their direct play is very good as well. They can put you under pressure with those direct balls into channels or into Callum Wilson or into Almiron making the runs. Interesting to see how they start, whether it's Joelinton still on the left and Willock in central midfield, or maybe they throw a curveball and put Sam Maximan out on the left and Joelinton goes back into central midfield. I wouldn't think so, given it's away from home, but that might be one to exploit. Maybe the space or the matchup against Ben White, 1v1 against Sam Maximan. Although Joelinton has his own physical attributes that he can maybe give Ben White a rough time with as well on the left-hand side. So, I don't know. This is a game that has pros and cons for both teams. I just think it's... Hopefully they play to their level, because if they do, we should have the best game we've seen this season. I'm really excited, as you can tell, for this one.
Bring it on.
Bring it on. And then obviously City-Chelsea.
City-Chelsea. We got one out-of-form team and then one team that's sort of... I wouldn't necessarily say City are out of form. They're just not playing to their level, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the thing that stands out straight away, as it does with most City games, but the matchup of Haaland, and particularly this one, because it will be against Koulibaly and Thiago Silva, two experienced campaigners. So I'm very much looking forward to how they deal with that. And probably as well, the matchup, it's not a direct matchup, but Kovacic versus De Bruyne will be really key as well. I think Kovacic is a player who sometimes negates his defensive responsibilities, and you will not be able to do that with Kevin De Bruyne lurking, especially Kevin De Bruyne around Jorginho, who just isn't mobile enough, isn't strong enough to hold that midfield by himself. So some fascinating matchups. I see City probably having too much, but it's a game where I also can see City slipping up and maybe not getting the win.
I don't know. I feel like Pep generally rectifies like a poor result, e.g., against the draw against Everton, and I can see them not dismantling, like maybe not scoreline wise dismantling Chelsea, but I guess putting on a bit of a clinic. I can see that happening.
Yeah, it just depends what kind of clinic we're watching. Are we watching a clinic in ball possession, or are we watching a clinic where they create a lot of chances and score goals? I guess.
I think they'll create a lot of chances, but they might not score as many goals if Thiago Silva and Koulibaly are on it. But like last season, I think both games ended 1-0 for City. So it might be something like that. But that was against a Tuchel Chelsea, so it might be something in that sort of regard where it's a tight game, where it's a 1-0 or a 2-0, but there's a lot of chances created, a lot of like bombardment.
Yeah, no, I think it's just good that we have these two fixtures this midweek. These are the first two sort of. You wouldn't call Arsenal or Newcastle blue chipper traditionally, but the way it's panned
On
out.
form.
But yeah, on form. And Chelsea City is always a blue chipper, so I'm really looking forward to these two fixtures in the midweek. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. But rest of Europe,
All right, just a quick wrap.
give you a wrap.
And yeah, just there's not much to say. I mean, Real Madrid. I think did Real Madrid go back to the top, or Barcelona might still be top on goal difference after they only draw with Espanyol. But the big thing coming out, and as well in the race for top four, and I need to flag this: Real Sociedad are looking really good for that top four, and that's a team that I haven't really given much love to this season, but. They are helped by Betis and Bilbao drawing 0-0 on the first La Liga, or one of the first La Liga games back. Atletico got a 2-0 win, so they continue to be up and down, but they'll be helped with Griezmann being able to play more and more.
More
So
than 30
I think
minutes.
they're back in the top. Yeah, exactly. So Atletico go back into the top four. They're helped by Betis and Bilbao drawing. Bilbao are a team who look a little bit on the wane for me. I haven't been convinced with them since their strong start. Iñaki Williams just doesn't score the goals. Sanset was playing this sort of number 10 role, which I just prefer him as a number 8. I think he looks better. And that midfield just doesn't fill me with confidence at this present moment. So, yeah, and Muniain just continues to not start for some reason, which I don't know. He's had a bit of a checkered past, so maybe that's coming to the fore again. Bilbao look like they're just on the down. Betis continue to be really strong. I think they'll be a team who are there or thereabouts for top four for the rest of the season. But yeah, Sociedad. Bryce Mendes from central midfield is having a fantastic season. Kubo as well up front looks exciting. He needs a bit more end product. But yeah, Sociedad look like quite a solid team. A team who have opened up a little bit of a gap in third now. So I think they're a good shout, and hopefully in coming weeks we'll be able to give them more love, especially when they play more high-profile fixtures. And as well, Villarreal are always a team that I like to mention. They played Valencia, got a 2-1 win in the last minute on the weekend. I just think they're a fun team. I think they have a lot of players that a lot of clubs should be looking at. Chukwueze had a really good game. Gerard Moreno is sort of like the poor man's Harry Kane for them up front. Jeremy Pino's only 19. He hasn't really fulfilled his potential that I wanted to see, but being so young and still being quite influential is a good sign for obviously Villarreal. And I do love watching Danny Parejo. Etienne Capoe's playing well as well. So yeah, Villarreal, they need to put something together if they want to challenge for top four. I think it might be a bit gone this season, but who knows if they put something together? They have the quality to do it. I didn't even mention Dan Juma, who's a backup there. So, and the centre backs I really like as well in Pau Torres and Raul Albiol, and Juan Foyt I think scored the winner on the weekend, who is a centre back come right back who I really like as well, who maybe Tottenham shouldn't have let go, I guess. But yeah, I think I always like Villarreal. I always think they have players who big clubs should be looking at. But my main takeaway, and I want to keep this quick because I know we're running long, but I wanted to have a little bit of a Barca discussion after their draw in the derby against Espanyol. Not a complete Barca, but it relates to one player in particular. And Pedri, who I think has somewhat maybe stalled in recent months. Who I know he's very young, so I'm not. Please, I'm not giving up on Pedri. I'm just saying in recent months, I think he should have been playing a bit better than he has been. And I think Barcelona, I don't know. I don't know if they're using him right because he appears to be this kind of, and Spain to that fact, in the World Cup when they got knocked out by Morocco. But he appears to be a player who is used to control tempo a lot. But in both of those teams, you don't need players like that. All the other players could control tempo, especially through the fullbacks, especially Barcelona, who are still playing Marcos Alonso as a centre back. So you've got another ball player there. Jordi Alba, who was stupid, got himself sent off by. I'll give you one guess at the referee for Barcelona against Espanyol.
Lahoz.
Spanish, yes, Mateo Lahoz. And I believe our good friend Matthias was at that game, so I still need to ask him if he enjoyed watching the star man Mateo Lahoz do his work at the new camp. But yeah, Jordi Alba being stupid. He's played there for years. Why is he talking back to Lahoz? Gets himself sent off, so... but he's another ball player who they could use in there. Sergio Roberto played right back, another ball player. Gavi can do that role. Busquets obviously does that role. Frankie de Jong started as the holding midfielder in this game, so he does that. So there's no need for Pedri. They need Pedri to be playing closer to Lewandowski, more in the 10 role. I think he's versatile enough to do that, but he needs to start getting assists and goals because... at the moment, his development for me has stalled a little bit. I'm not worried yet because he is so young and it hasn't been that long. But I just think he can be better than what he's shown for club and country in probably the last 9 months at least. Ever since Barcelona had that really strong start under Xavi. Ever since they've been a bit more, well, it's hard to say inconsistent because they're top of the league at the moment, but I just think we could get more out of this absolute jewel in the crown that is Pedri.
Do you think he's maybe playing too much? Because I think last season, didn't he play the Euros and the Olympics? So he played like 70 or 80 games, was it? So he played like a full season with Barca, played the Euros, played every game of the Euros that Spain were in, then played every game of the Olympics. And I think they made the final as well. And they went pretty deep in the Euros, so like he's playing 6 to 7 games in either of those tournaments, and then he pretty much came straight back to Barca and started playing straight away. Do you think maybe that's having an impact where it's like too many games at such a young age?
That's a really good point, and it definitely could be. I'm obviously not privy to that information on his physical stats and whatnot. Oh, well, stats I guess we could get, but in terms of his condition, the one thing I'll say is he is young. So I think if he's ever gonna do it, now's the time for him to do it. But he could be tired as well.
That's the thing.
Point. So yeah,
I think he might be. We're obviously speculating. He might be mentally tired. Like physically, these players, especially being at such a young age, like. You'd expect that he'd want to play every 3 to 4 days, so there's no question in regards to the physical capability, but it's just like the mental, because has he even had a holiday?
Yeah, I know it doesn't seem that way, but I think in the tactical sense for Xavi, I think him being played as a number 10 could actually help a few of those situations in terms of. Now he can maybe not have to insert himself in the game as much, but insert himself in key moments. And then like a player like Gavi, who I guess has been on a similar schedule, but he's a player who he never appears to be tired. And he's a player who, for me, can't do as much, definitely not in the offensive sense. He can't do as much game-breaking sort of moments as a Pedri. I think I've been down this road before, but I put Pedri on a different class to a Gavi, even though I'm always amazed at Gavi's characteristics for such a young player, that he can be such a instrumental leader for the teams that he's in through his sort of emotional leadership and his ability to unite squads. I think he's exceptional at that. So, but yeah, I just want to see Pedri making more difference in games. I know that he's such a silky footballer. I know he can keep possession, help you tick it over. But both the country and the team that he plays for doesn't need him to be that. I think they need him to be something a little bit different, something that I'm very sure he's capable of. But I just haven't either seen him take it upon himself to do that, or the managers he plays under to put him in the position to do that. And it's just something that I think will be very helpful for his development, because I look at his teammate like a Robert Lewandowski, who I think this season is being asked to do more link-up play than he ever has in his career. Definitely at Bayern Munich. I know he sort of had it in him a little bit over the last couple of seasons, but this season I think he's really being asked to link up the play a lot more. I think Pedri sort of alleviates a bit of that so that Lewandowski can be more of the goal scorer that he is, although he doesn't need to be because he's still scoring at a phenomenal rate. And also the Casemiro point as well, who is now being asked to do more at Manchester United and is able to do more at Manchester United. So I think these players are able to do it. They just need to be asked to do it, and they need to be put in position to do it. And he is one that I want to see do it, because he is one of the brightest young prospects in European football, and just such an exciting player when he's on song.
Caleb, I think you should send your CV to Xavi at Barcelona.com.
And I guess just finally, just to wrap up, the big talking point from Europe, or the other two leagues that are going on in Liga and La Liga, is that and the Portuguese league, because I got to throw this in there as well. Mm-hmm. Although I haven't been able to watch any of that this season, but every single unbeaten record is now gone.
Really?
Because obviously PSG and Benfica were in the same group. Neither of them lost in that group in the Champions League. And then upon PSG's second game back, I believe it might have been Benfica's first game back, and they did have, I looked at the team sheets, they did have Nicolas Otamendi and Enzo Fernandez both starting for them, and Gonzalo Ramos, but they lose 3-1 away at Braga, and they lose their unbeaten run to the start of the season. And PSG, Braga are a good team in their own right. Braga sit third in the Portuguese league, so that's no shame to lose that, but it is a shame to lose their unbeaten run. And PSG, who lost to probably my favourite team in France in Lens. I remember a while ago I gave them a quick shout out for how well they started the season. Well, now to be fair, they've only closed the gap to 4 points, even with the win. But they have closed the gap to 4 points and opened up, I believe, a 7-point gap on third place, who I think still are Marseille in Ligue 1. But yeah, now Lens have put themselves right in the driver's seat for a top 4 finish, and maybe even more. And they look a little bit Newcastle-like in Ligue 1 in terms of they're not there by accident. They are playing very good football. I thought they battered PSG off the park. They really exposed the wide areas. And it's funny I say this because they play a 3-4-3, a formation that I earlier said I didn't really like, but it worked really well in this game with the wing backs and the wingers sort of exposing PSG in the wide areas. But to be fair, Lens play it as sort of this hybrid way where they get one of the wingers to drop in as a central midfielder to help them play out. So it looks more like a 3-3-4, if anything. But the two central midfielders, Seiko Fofana and Abdul Samid from, I think he's Ghanaian from memory. Those two central midfielders are really good. Seiko Fofana was fantastic in this game. And also Facundo Medina, it's the left centre-back, only 23 years old, Argentinian. Probably a little bit stiff not to get in the squad, but Argentina have some pretty good centre-backs at the moment. But he looks really good, the left-sided of the three. Kind of a bit like a Christian Romero, maybe not as aggressive, but sort of wants to go and press that ball, can play out from the back. And like I said, only 23 years old, so I think some clubs should be sniffing around for him. Seiko Fofana is 27, so maybe he's a little bit past, but he's a player in his prime. So if you needed a central midfielder, maybe even PSG just look straight at him and get him in for the rest of the season and beyond, because they desperately obviously need a central midfielder. But yeah, obviously no Messi, no Neymar for this game really helps Lens, but Mbappe wasn't able to be the one-man show, and yeah, Lonza's just super impressive, and they deserve a shout-out for what they did in this game and what they've been doing all season.
Is Neymar still carrying that
yeah.
injury? Is that why he wasn't
No,
playing?
he got sent off for 2 yellow cards in the first game back against Strasbourg, and the second one was for diving. So, and apparently he left the stadium before the team had finished the game as well.
Did a Ronaldo?
Yeah, surprise, surprise. All is not well at PSG. Who'd have thought that was coming, eh?
Who would have thought? So maybe Bayern can claim that scalp come February.
Well, again, that midfield area still worries me for PSG, and given that that's a Bayern Munich strength, that might just be enough.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, Lens 4 points behind PSG, 4 points above Marseille. Maybe they can secure that Champions League spot.
Well, they're comfortably the second best team in France for me so far.
Yeah, and my boy Lovro Meyer got the win for Rennes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Where does that push him to the table?
Fourth.
Fourth, top
Yeah,
four.
so
There you go.
They're playing pretty well. I want him at Arsenal. I would like him there. Maybe even Liverpool could try. Maybe Liverpool should look at him as well.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is it looks like high demands on a player like that in the Liverpool midfield. I don't think our midfield suits him as much as Arsenal's midfield would suit him.
I don't know. I reckon he has the legs. Like, he's young.
Yeah. He just needs to build that physicality a bit more because he'll be asked to cover more ground in Liverpool's midfield rather than Arsenal's.
Yeah,
or
true.
just cover, like be imposing in more space, I guess.
Yeah,
the right way to put it.
Yeah, no, I get that, but yeah, is that your little Europe wrap? Considering there's no
my little Europe
Bundesliga,
corner.
no Bundesliga,
no Serie A. I'll wait for that to come back.
Is the first match back? I saw an advertisement for Napoli versus Inter, I think. Is that one, or is that coming up very soon?
It should be very soon, because I know the Bundesliga has a prolonged break. Tomorrow, there you go. Tomorrow for us. Tomorrow night. And we have, if you guys, Milan kick us off. Yeah, Inter Napoli, there you go. That should be a cracker.
Yeah, that should be good. Oh, that's the same time as Arsenal, though. Damn. You're gonna have to watch that one after the Arsenal game. So without knowing the result. Yeah, I'm gonna have to definitely switch that one on.
Definitely.
Caleb,
all right, man. You happy yet?
I'm happy. Hopefully our viewers are happy. Hopefully they have already liked the video. They've subscribed. Comment if you agree or disagree with anything. If you'd like your team to make any sort of signings.
Tip us off. Red flaggers, or give us the flags.
Yeah, but
we'll know what to look for.
Caleb, we will adjourn and we will see each other later in the week, and we'll see our viewers will see us later in the week as well. So for everyone that's tuned in so far, thanks for coming, and bye for now.